Welcome to Storycomic Presents, where we interview amazing storytellers and artists. This is episode 203. I'm your host, Barney Smith of Storycomic.com, and we're excited to have with us the internationally acclaimed comic creator of Birth of Golden Arm, Edigbe Ubido. Eddie, how you doing?
Yeah, good. Not bad. It's about midnight over here, so yeah, but, just looking forward to getting a bit of a getting a bit of a talk on about the comic.
Oh, there we go. So Eddie, talk to us a bit about the comic. It's really interesting. You have this comic that you came out that actually you did a Kickstarter launch for it last year, and it looks fantastic. And now you've taken this comic and you've been able to introduce it through ASAP Imagination through the NE1 World platform. And the comic book series is, as we said, is called the comic book series, as we say, it's called Birth of Golden Arm. It looks fantastic. I love the history behind it. I love it has this almost vintage science fiction comic to it, where it takes place on different planets, and it's science fiction and superhero all mixed together. But you want to give people first kind of a background on how you came up with this concept of Golden Arm?
Well, I think the Golden Arm and the universe that he exists in kind of originate from two different places. Like I began thinking of all these characters, and I think the kind of world took place by it, took shape by itself, and that the stories I was kind of coming up with kind of introduced these kinds of these details that I wanted to include, and you know the universe kind of took place because of the natures of the stories that I wanted to tell. And where you have Golden Arm, I'd thought of a whole bunch of characters all interacting in their own way in all these different stories. But then I kind of had it was almost like two worlds. There was kind of this there was this otherworldly um planet destroying stories that I was kind of working on. And then there was also the street stories, which include a lot more emotion and a lot more a lot more of a grounded approach. So Golden Arm is someone who lies in kind of in the middle, who allows me to tell both of these kinds of stories, because he's one half of him is completely vulnerable and is completely human, but he's also got a god on the other side of his arm, which allows me to tell these more epic stories and more of these these ones with higher stakes, but at the same time having a human side, which you have more. It's more grounded. It gives you a lot more of a space to explore more emotional stories. So that's kind of what I wanted, the kind of direction I wanted to take the story in.
So talk to us a bit about as well the premise of the story, that you've set up. Uh, so we know, like, Golden Arm, he has half of his arm is basically, what is it, the unstable essence of a god. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah. So basically the setup is that is basically his dad is from the planet Saturn, but his mom is from Earth. So basically, in this historic times in Saturn, there was a war between Saturn and Jupiter, which the god of Saturn was involved in the destruction of Jupiter, because it was stopping them from spreading widespread destruction, and they were trying to influence influence the kind of regime wherever they could. So basically, once Jupiter was destroyed, it left Raikomi, who's the god you see just on the left here. It left them all withered and unstable. So that's where you see Frederick's fate going, like throughout the story, and Raikomi realizes that Saturn is once again in peril. So he'll have to join forces with someone he trusts, and he chooses Frederick, which is, the perspective from where I wanted to tell the story.
And so does this place as you mentioned, the planet Saturn, do you have it in your world where there's different planets are populated with different species?
Exactly, yeah, that's the kind of premise of it. It's a kind of mythology around our solar system, and in this world, like the reason you and I don't see aliens from other planets is the fact that this used to be the case, but there was such a widespread conflict that Earth realized that to keep themselves safe, they needed to block themselves out from all the other planets. But then they started to see that how technologically advanced all the other planets were becoming, and they were getting the jump on Earth. So Earth started to think, okay, let's open our borders and see, how much we can benefit, like from an economical standpoint. And you get people coming over to try and cause trouble and take advantage of the Earth and how vulnerable it is. As Rick starts to take his place in the world, he ends up being caught up in one of these conflicts when he was a kid, and he decides to spend his life trying to battle these threats that normal humans don't understand, because he has more of an insight on how they work.
So talk to us a bit about what the different planets are, and what kind of, how are the species, and how did you design the different planets from the perspective of like the culture and the population and things like that. I found that fascinating, the world building aspect of it.
Yeah, thanks. Well, like to be honest, like I am like I think that here on Earth we have so much rich culture that's not like shared, and it's not like appreciated as it should be. And I feel like you can find inspiration from that kind of thing, and it can seem very alien. So like a lot of these concepts and this kind of artwork that I'm integrating, a lot of it is kind of inspired by different cultures from around the world. It's like I guess with Saturn, I kind of have like a fusion between it's kind of like Roman meets tribal, like sub-Saharan African. Like that's the kind of into me in that kind of sense. And with all different species from all different planets, for me it was so interesting to just fuse like two different kind of cultures, that, and then when someone reads it, it might seem alien, because it's like, you wouldn't see these things together, but for me they fit so well. And when these things take shape in my head, that's kind of what comes to me first.
Talk about chapter 1. So you pretty much have, and how far have you written out? Your Golden Arm series?
Well, like Golden Arm like started off as a graphic novel, and it was I always envisaged like the final product, like even before I started. and like I knew how many elements that I was integrating into the story and how I saw it as a graphic novel, which is what I aimed for and what I went for, like off the bat, pretty much. But
Okay.
yeah, so like that. So my Kickstarter, which is before my Anyone days, was the release of the full graphic novel,
Mm.
which I did sell the first two chapters beforehand, but yeah, that was that's the kind of the way I saw it, but at the same time, like that was after I'd developed like a small fan base. So I knew that when I was coming to any one world, I wouldn't exactly exactly have the same pull. Like people weren't gonna take as much of a chance on something that like I'm gonna go with my chapters one by one, so I can kind of build up a bit of steam, and I can come and talk about each one, because I did integrate a lot of concepts into these books, and I think it is important that I slow it down a little bit, and I have a chance to speak about each chapter before they come out, because otherwise a lot of things might go unnoticed. But as for how far I am with writing it, I'm actually starting to think about when to begin the sequel. We'll know the Birth of Golden Arm is one of three books, which the Birth of Golden Arm is based on from Earth's perspective and how Earth reacts to all these kinds of changes going on around it. But then
Okay.
going forward, we start to explore these other worlds and what is, keep it concise and keep it to three books, every single target, like
Mm.
before it ends.
So talk to us a bit about where your inspiration came from this as well. Did you have a character, like for instance, when we're talking about Frederick, did you have a character in mind that you wanted to tell a story for, or did you have a concept you wanted to explore, or did you have really getting to the world creating, like you say, listen, I love this idea about Saturn and how this culture would look like. So what was your how did you what was your first inspiration to creating this story?
I think I'd already like made the world in which he exists, and so and like there was all this kind of history that I kind of had thought out, but it was just kind of, and I kind of knew the events which were going to take place, but I just didn't know what perspective to tell them from. And I think I think there was so many like I say, like there was so many different kind of levels to it. There was planets being destroyed, but then again there was like more human elements to it, which I wanted someone invincible so I could tell the big grand stories, but then like I wanted someone vulnerable so you could still get a connection with them, and you could still like empathize with someone. So
Mm.
so that's why I kind of made Golden Arm, because that's someone who sits right in the middle, so I could tell every element to every story. But everything, like I think because I've thought of these things like so long ago, everything's kind of matured as I've kind of aged. So as it started, everything's I might have put Golden Lamb in the center of these stories, but then the stories have kind of changed around him, and like so like it's a bit of give and take, but yeah, yeah, I would say it's the story that came first before the character, but then it's kind of been a bit interchangeable along the way.
So talk to us a bit about uh, your process. So you're the one that writes this, and you're also the one that illustrates this, correct?
Well, like I think the story kind of just plays out in my mind. Like I don't know You know, it's weird. I've not spoke to anyone else about what their process is, but I've kind of just made something that kind of makes sense to me. So like I kind of I play the thing out in my head like it's a movie. Like, you know, say, you know, it can be at any time. Like, say if I'm on a flight somewhere, or, you know, say if I'm waiting in a long car journey, something like that. Like, you know, the kind of thing just automatically just plays out in my head. And like, you know, I might things each time it plays, or like, you know, there might be a kind of element that I work out, and it you know, it kind of just sticks in my head. So then like I'll know what my starting point is, and like I know what every scene is and what it needs to contain. So then like say if I'm starting on, like, you know, one scene, I'll like you know, like I might get, you know, get my phone whenever I'm feeling creative, and I might type out like a script for like a specific scene, and just go as long as I can think. And then you know, like at different points, whichever I'm feeling, I might write different scenes or whatever. But then I'll go in chronological order of, like, you know, how things happen. And I'll basically I'll act these things. I have these kind of and then from there I'll draw the scene as you see in the background. I'll draw each scene like I'm building a movie set. So I'll draw the scene first, and then I'll draw the people into it as if they're interacting within this kind of movie set. And that's kind of, and then, like, you know, I feel like I do it pretty much like a movie shoot. Like, you know, I'll add the special effects afterwards. Like, you know, you see these flames like flying over his shield here, and, you know, you see the kind of, you know, the onomatopoeias and stuff like that, like, or the way that they're rushing forward. Yeah, and that's kind of the way I build it up. But like, yeah, first, as I think most people do, like, I draw like the concept of like each character, and, you know, what the outfit is, like, head to toe, like how the kind of powers will, like, you know, protrude, or like how they would kind of, you know, how the mechanics are, if that makes sense.
Mm. So what do you use as a system? Do you use Photoshop, or do you do this? How do you draw out everything?
Oh yeah, no, it's funny. I use Microsoft PowerPoint for everything.
Oh wow, okay. So how do you do that then? It's all drawn out. How do you talk?
Yeah.
That's really amazing. Talk to how did you do that?
Well, do you know what? It's like, you know, it's weird when I say it, but like it kind of developed naturally, because like because like I think when I was a kid, I used to draw like cartoons on Microsoft PowerPoint, and I'd hit, like, you know, I'd move things, and then I'd hit the arrow key, and I'll just flip through all the slides, and it'd be like, you know, a kind of cartoon. So like I was kind of really used to the you could use. But then so like I used to draw like my comic scenes in it, and I used to draw stuff by hand. And then like and then one day I tried drawing over one of my drawings on PowerPoint to make it, because I think, because my hand's not very steady, I couldn't make the drawings very consistent. So I tried like just drawing over one. Like, I think that's just what I'm gonna do. And like yeah, I think the tools are just something I understand, I guess. Like, I think it's just, I don't think I don't think, you know, one tool is everyone's tool, if you know what I mean. I think if you kind of understand it, and like, you know, you can make it work, it works, I guess.
So that's interesting. So how were you able then to export that into like a physical format?
Well, yeah, like I just, like, you know, say this page you see in front of you. I'll basically first like just draw a black square of like the right aspect ratio, and then like I'll draw lines on where I want the panels to end up, and then like I'll paste these scenes in like order of how they're gonna go down, and then I'll paste the characters and whatever's interacting with them like onto the scenes, and then like I'll save this as a picture, and then that's basically one page done. And then like I can do stuff like change it to printable colors, or I can change it to a PDF, and then I can upload it to get printed, that kind of thing.
What are some tips that you recommend to give other comic creators if they're looking to create their own comic?
Well, I think it's just time, and I think it's just finding a story that's worth putting in all the effort, and it's about finding a way to make it happen. Like for me, I didn't really know anything about making comics before I made the comic. I just read that there's ways to that I didn't even know you could pay other artists to draw your comics. I didn't know like you could meet up with other writers and stuff like that. I just thought, if I need to make a comic, I need to draw it, and I need to write everything, and I need to pretty much make what I see on the shelf. So like like I think the only way I managed to make it was finding that a story that I thought was worth sticking with for for years, because I think I spent like a year of starting and restarting before I thought I was in a stage where it was something that was worth continuing. And then it wasn't until like 2 years later that I had something that I thought was at least something that I could move forward with. And then like I spent another 6 spot on. That meant redrawing a lot of it, but I think I wouldn't have had the patience for all that if I didn't think it was if it was a story worth telling. And and then I spent like another year promoting it, and then I'm then at the end of this 4 or 5 year journey, and I'm proud of the way it turned out, but that was only because I was adamant in getting everything exactly perfect in my eyes. So I think it just all comes from passion, really, and that's the only way that something's going to come into fruition.
Yeah, that's a good point. Now, what what did what other advice would you give to a comic creator who would say, "Hey, so Eddie, I I see that you had a pretty good successful Kickstarter. What would be some advice that you would offer to people in order to say take their comic and put it into a Kickstarter?"
Well, I think for me it was just fear of feeling like you've not done enough, which made me do enough, I guess. Like it was just like because there was so much that needed to be put into it to even get it to this level, like which included like doing all this kind of research, looking at what other people do, like just asking for others for help and like guidance, or like there's all kinds of stuff that you might not understand going into these kinds of things, because for me I found it really tricky, because I'm just a kind of one-man band. I've like it was kind of like I was having to spread myself quite thin between writing the book, controlling the social media, doing this kind of Kickstarter stuff, preparing everything, and then after that was done, it was like all my time was gone into like preparing everything and then sending it all out to all these different countries. But yeah, like I think the main thing is just look for advice for people of because I think sometimes I ask for advice from people who were leagues ahead of me, which it wasn't quite translatable, the kind of stuff, like the advice that they were giving me. But when you see someone who is quite like you, who is succeeding in these kinds of things, it's vital to kind of ask them, hey, what's your kind of, have you got any tips for me? Because like I think that's the only way that people can go in not completely blind by looking to the peers.
Right. So as we said, this came out on Kickstarter, and it was delivered to your backers. How did you get introduced to ASAP Imagination and its Anyone World platform?
Do you know what? It was while I was doing a lot of the promotion for the Kickstarter, like because Paul was he was helping, like, sharing a lot of my stuff, and like I think it was from like two like UK based creators. We kind of we was out amongst all these some more stateside kind of creators. So it was nice to kind of talk to someone else who was in a kind of similar boat, and he helped a lot with sharing some of the stuff, and like we got talking, and like yeah, I think you might have seen me do a few lives, and like and heard me talking about my story, and I think he kind of was invested also. So yeah, that's when he approached me about joining the Anyone World, and I thought through the Kickstarter I was kind of reaching my limits within promotion, and I'm still proud of what I did, but like I think I didn't have the means to push past this kind of barrier that I was reaching, which I was proud of reaching, but I feel like through Anyone World I can kind of reach new audiences, and I can see where it goes, because I still see like a lot of potential, and there's a lot more to come.
And so you have 3 chapters to this, correct? And that's it?
No, so there's 6 chapters altogether for this book.
Wow. Okay. Okay. And then after that, are you going to go on and talk and do some creation of a different world altogether, or do you want to concentrate still into the Golden Arm universe?
Well, I want to kind of funnel all my kind of creativity into this universe, because I feel like I've opened so many boxes that like it deserves like all my kind of attention. So I'm kind of writing as if it's my, I've kind of said to myself, it's gonna be 3 graphic novels. So this is the first one, The Birth of Golden Arm. So then I've got these 3 novels, and I've got to fit in all my kind of creativity, because it's a big task, but it's a very achievable one, and especially with all the kind of concepts that I'm kind of bringing up, I need to give them all the kind of time to shine within this kind of small time frame. So I think that will make something truly exciting, because I don't want it to be dragged out. I don't want the message to kind of be stretched. I don't want it to be beaten to death. I want it to be like, concise, but at the same time, I want it to be extensive to a point where, people can get a lot from it.
So you have different characters within your Golden Arm story. How do you differentiate between characters and personalities to make sure that each one stands out on its own?
Well, like, I don't put, I never put like, a character in, for the sake of things. Like they're always involved in the story, and a lot of the time I'll come up with the personality before I come up with the character. Like, say for all these characters, like, I want someone to come into the story with a particular energy, so that to provide a different kind of plot point and a different kind of dynamic to the story. So then, then they'll kind of come into it, and then the way they look, the way they act, the way whatever they do, that kind of fits in with the kind of energy that I want to project into the story, if that makes sense. And you can kind of grasp that from like their expressions from just looking around this, for example.
And so I'm kind of curious as well, as like, do you have all the planets? Do you have all the planets represented in your story?
For this one, I think most of them are represented, but within the whole book series, every planet will be represented, because I want to explore as much as I can.
And do you even go into details also with like the moons of different planets as well?
Yeah, they do come into play within the plot. But that's for a later date, I'd say.
Is there anything within your story that you can't wait for your readers to discover? Is there a good plot point that you just can't wait for readers to discover that you want to?
Yeah, like I think especially with chapter 2, like I'm very interested in seeing, like, because this is kind of, because chapter 2 basically creates the fabric of the whole novel, but it raises a lot of questions which remain unanswered, shall we say. But like like I think there's so many plot points that I put a lot into, and I feel like I felt a lot when I was writing it and creating it. So like, I want to see whether these things kind of resonate, and like see whether it gets the satisfaction it deserves.
And so, because you, not, as we said, you write it, you illustrate it, you color it, you letter it. Do you do every aspect of making this comic, or is there any part of this comic that somebody else does?
No, well, like I got it edited. Like, I got, like, when I'd finished it, like I got, like, some people who are close to me who are quite into kind of, I don't know, they're just kind of movie buffs, I guess. Like they just like movies. Like, I got them to kind of read it to kind of see what they kind of think, and they give me their opinions, or they might have thought, oh, change this dialogue, this sounds a little bit better, or like, this kind of seems more like what this person would say, or whatever. So like, yeah, because I'm coming at it from a very singular mind, so I don't want to get too caught up in it, and like, I want it to be accessible as though at the same time as being my brainchild, should we say.
And that's awesome. But even like the lettering and all that stuff, you do all that stuff as well.
Yeah, it's all me.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. This is amazing. I've never talked to a comic creator that's used PowerPoint as their illustration base. That's awesome. What's next with you and Anyone World platform?
Next, chapter 2 will be dropped at some point, which remains unannounced. But like I'm really enjoying the way the way it's going, because I'm around a lot of more experienced creators, and I think I can learn a lot from them. So yeah, I'm really interested to see where it goes, because this is, it's like, I'm having chance to discuss, like, all these things that I've held just to one side, like, for a long time. So it's good that I'm getting chance to kind of flesh out every aspect of the story, and like know, even like come on here and like discuss, you know, chapter one, which, you know, I might have flashed over, but like it's good that it's every chapter's gonna have a chance to breathe, and I'm gonna be able to, you know, bring a lot more attention.
That's excellent. So Eddie, if people want to find more of your work, what's the best place that people can go to?
So all my stuff is available. So chapter one is available in download and in a physical copy on the Anyone website. Just www.anyoneworld.com, which is in my bio on Instagram, and my handle on Instagram is at the birth of Golden Arm, which yeah, you can find the link to all my stuff in my bio. So yeah.
Perfect. All right. Well, thank you very much, Eddie. And listen, you have to come back on when you have your chapter 2 and chapter 3 and so on and so forth out.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's been good. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah, thanks for having me on.
You're welcome.